Hello, I'm so glad you could join me. My name is Pixie. I make videos about art and books. This particular one has both, so you can watch me do this study of an oversized jumper I'm getting ready for fall in my sketchbook, while I tell you about some books that I haven't talked about on my channel because I took a little break for a while. So I want to start all the way back in January when I read a book called Temporary by Hilary Leichter, I think is how you would pronounce that name. And it's kind of a magical realism, literary, surrealist. It's a really weird book. So the unnamed protagonist is like a temp worker for some kind of agency in this magical world. So like she fills in for someone on a pirate ship, and then she becomes an assassin's assistant, which is hard to say. And I really liked it because I feel like it captured really well the feeling of unreality you can get when you're constantly super stressed and everything feels temporary, like when your living situation is super unstable, which is something I have experienced a lot in my life previously. And I also felt that the book was pretty like criticizing capitalism, which I obviously appreciate. It does end very pessimistically, which I think is really a reflection of how capitalism itself is in a dead end and a lot of people can't see a way out, which is completely understandable. But I would still definitely recommend it if you like weird books. It's a pretty short one. I think the audiobook was like 4 hours, so it's not a big commitment. I gave it 4 stars. I think it was really cool. Then I read Horrid by Katrina Leno for the Lamentable Library Book Club, and honestly I was pretty disappointed. So Horrid is a young adult horror, and I was hoping, based on what I had heard about Katrina Leno, I haven't read her before, but based on what I had heard, that it wouldn't be so cliche and more weird. Like the fact that the main character gets a job in the first bookshop / cafe she walks into, and it's run by a cute guy. It's like, come on. The atmosphere in the haunted house was really good, and I did want to know about the mystery, but the payoff for that kind of disappointed me in the end. Also, the dialogue was really stilted and weird. So I gave it a 3, like it was fine. Another book that I thought I was gonna really like but ended up being just fine was What Should Be Wild by Julia Fine. A fitting name. I was really into it at first, but I ended up giving it 3 stars in the end. So the premise of this book is that the main character, who's a young girl, kills everything she touches, but she can also like bring them back to life when she touches them. I heard that's the same concept as the TV show Pushing Daisies, which I haven't watched, so I don't know. But I was really into that because it's like a reckoning and exploration of mortality, which is a theme that I tend to enjoy. And I thought like the writing style was pretty morbid in a way that I enjoyed. Like I wrote down an example in my reading journal where a baby is described as swaddled so tightly they appear embalmed, and a crib was carved like a casket. So it was a lot of that, and also a lot of body awareness in like the writing style, and that gave like a creepy vibe that I liked. But I didn't like how when the main character gets her period, she's like super into it, and like that makes sense for a character because she just like kills things, so she enjoys the idea that she's able to like give life as well. But I am just not a fan of like menstruation based feminism, empowerment kind of stuff. And it felt a lot like that because she does use her period blood as like a weapon. Spoiler. There's also in this book a magical forest, and we get flashbacks to women in like previous generations of her family, which are both things that I typically enjoy. But like in the end, this ended up being disappointing, partly because of like a couple of details I was feeling really petty about, and also because the ending was like really abrupt and not super satisfying. Mostly I feel like things weren't explained well enough at the end. I was actually feeling petty enough about those 2 details I mentioned that I wrote them down in my art journal, so I can tell you about them. So the first one was that she ordered horses, who are a prey animal, to attack and kill someone, and there was no explanation as to why they would do that. It was just like it's magic, hand wave kind of thing, because previously things had been pretty well explained. There's also like a flashback to her mom using oil paints, and this would have been like around 1990, and it says that she dips the paintbrush in water, and so I haven't been able to find like a date for when water mixable oils started to becoming a thing, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't common before 1990. So that really annoyed me. Basically, I wouldn't recommend this book, even though I gave it 3 stars, and I will sometimes recommend 3-star reads, like on occasion, but this one just was not it. A much better book that I do recommend is Lucy by Jamaica Kincaid. It's a coming-of-age story about a young girl who moves from her family to the US and tries to reckon with like racism and also just her independence and her relationship with her mother. It was recommended to me by my therapist, actually, for specifically the like mother relationship stuff. It's really difficult to be a human being, and this book deals with it in a very accurate and well-written way. It felt very like direct, and yeah, I really enjoyed it, so definitely recommend. The Mercies by Kieran Millwood Hargrave was also a lamentable library, I can't say that either, pick, and I've described it as ocean gothic in my journal. And I think I'm just gonna read like what I wrote in my journal. So here we go. Felt overwritten at first, one too many similes. Got better a few chapters in though. Chapter 20-ish. Am I finally seeing one of the butch lesbians I've heard so much about? Update, nope. She just got burned at the stake, the gay was femme, and the ending fully unsatisfying. Seems like setup for a series, but no. Shame, really. So what I meant with the butch comment is that people very often say that like, oh, it's so nice to get to see a lesbian character who gets to be feminine, as if we are just overburdened with so many gender non-conforming lesbians in media, and we're really not. Like, femininity is very prevalent, kind of mandatory at this point. So that was what I was commenting on, and it didn't end too well for her, as you heard. So that disappointed me a bit. Like, it was not a bad book per se, I just was not super into it. Okay, I skipped ahead quite a bit past books I reviewed on TikTok, or that I just don't want to talk about, to find a book that I really, really enjoyed, When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain by Nevo. It has a very like folklore vibe. It's about storytelling and talking tigers, and it's queer. It's very queer, and I just really enjoyed it. The notes I took for this one weren't very detailed, and my memory is terrible, so that's pretty much what I can say. But read it. It's also a short read, so it's definitely worth your time to at least check it out. Another book I would recommend is Riot Baby by Tochi Onyebuchi. Again, my notes aren't the most detailed, but here are the keywords I wrote down. LA riots, prison industrial complex, righteous anger, trauma, loss, family bonds. And this is, again, a kind of book that usually works for me, where the author uses supernatural elements to explore extremely real issues. Like, I was kind of drawing a parallel to Kindred by Octavia Butler, and that is super positive. I've said this before, but I think it's just so powerful to utilize the tools of like science fiction, fantasy, whatever, to explore real world issues and be really like frank and honest about how shitty they are. Let's end on a cozy note. I also read Botanical Folk Tales of Britain and Ireland by Lisa Schneidow. And it's just what it sounds like. It's botanical folk tales from Britain and Ireland. And each tale has like a pre-section, like a bit before it, where she tells you like the botanical facts about whatever plant is relevant to the story. So I learned some cool things from that, but the stories were also enjoyable overall. So I really like this. Particular highlight was the story where a rapist and a murderer gets like killed by a tree, an oak tree. And I got to learn cool facts, like apparently juniper is under threat in the UK, which really upsets me because juniper is one of my favorite trees. Obviously, even if it wasn't, it would still be bad that plant species are being threatened with extinction because we have done fucked up. Not us, but capitalists, you know. Anyway, those were some books that I have read this year and hadn't shared with you. I hope you enjoyed my hot takes on literature, and let me know if you have read any of these and what you thought of them. I know I have some friends who loved Horrid, for example, and that's valid. It just was not for me. Also, if you liked this video, remember to press the like button so I know. And subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Join the gang. And I will see you again soon. Also, you can find my art and all my stuff in the description box. Anyway, thank you for hanging out with me. It was really nice. And take care of yourself. And I'll see you next time. Bye.